Welcome back to the Weekly Education Pulse. I'm Sammy.
And I'm Tony. Each week, we break down the key developments shaping the international independent school sector.
This week we're following on from our recent deep dive on the money behind the international education sector, because the news this week brings that conversation right up to date.
We have stories about acquisition, capital, what investors are actually looking at right now, and one story about infrastructure that gives British education its credibility globally. So let's get into it.
We'll begin with something a little different, not a single school announcement, but a window into how the people who buy, sell and advise on international school transactions are thinking right now.
The IPSEF Global is one of the most significant gatherings of international education investors, advisors and operators. The London event was held in Woburn Hall in July. A panel session on mergers and acquisitions drew together some of the most experienced voices on the market, chaired by Vipul Bhagavara of Novistra Capital and John Forsyth of Forfar Education, and Duncan Murphy of MTM Consulting and Ross Barefoot of Dentons.
The headline from the session is one that will resonate with anyone tracking the sector closely. Consolidation is no longer a trend. It's becoming inevitable. And the reasons are structural: rising costs, demographic pressures in some markets, and in certain urban centres, simply too many schools competing for too few children.
Duncan Murphy put it directly. Too many schools, not enough children, demographics are clear. He predicted a groundswell of managed mergers and closures over the next 12 months.
And John Forsyth added a financial dimension worth understanding. Over 90% of struggling schools he examines have staffing costs in excess of 80% of their income. And in many cases, principals and boards have known about the problem for years, but have been either reluctant or just unable to actually act on it, and partly because of the sensitivity around communicating it to parents and communities.
What makes the panel particularly interesting is the discussion about what distinguishes a school worth acquiring: the consensus, operational quality, long-term demand, and management capability. Not property value alone, not heritage, and not fee level.
And perhaps the most thought-provoking observation came on scale. John Forsyth argued that scale is becoming a hindrance for the largest groups. And if you're trying to persuade a family in Greece to sell their school to a group of 130 campuses, he said, it's very hard for them not to see themselves as just number 131. The emotional dimension, education is emotional, means buyers must increasingly compete on vision and stewardship, not just the price.
What also emerged was a picture of where new acquisitions are likely to where they're likely to come from. Ali Ayev of North London Collegiate School noted that the international school sector has now over 14,800 institutions worldwide, with 376 added in the last 6 months, and Asia accounting for 58% of that total.
And this is an extraordinary rate of expansion, and it raises a question the panelists addressed directly. The market's growing that fast. How do you distinguish schools worth acquiring from those adding to overcapacity? The answer requires deep local knowledge: demographics, household income data, competitive mapping. Investors who succeed here understand specific market dynamics, not just global trends.
Ross Barefoot of Dentons pointed to where new opportunities are emerging. While the Middle East remains attractive, competition for quality assets there is so intense. So Romania and Poland are being explored. And in markets without enough schools to buy, greenfield developments is increasingly being considered.
And for our audience, the IPSEF discussion is a useful mirror. Consolidation is coming. The question is whether schools engage with it on their own terms or find themselves having that conversation under pressure.
Our second story today brings us to India, where GEMS Education has announced one of the most ambitious school expansion plans the country has seen from an international operator. GEMS India has confirmed a pipeline of 21 GEMS-operated school projects, with the first 5 campuses opening from the 2026 academic year. A further 16 schools planned over the coming 2 years.
The new schools will be offering the CBSE, ICSE, Cambridge and IB curricula. At full build-out, the network is expected to serve more than 100,000 students and create employment for over 10,000 educators. And alongside the school pipeline, GEMS India is establishing a Category 2 alternative investment fund under SEBI regulations, designed to raise institutional capital specifically for school infrastructure.
And that AIF structure signals that GEMS not only simply opening new schools in India, it is creating the financial architecture to scale systematically and to bring in external institutional investors alongside its own capital.
Yeah, this also connects to a separate Adani Foundation partnership, where at least 20 schools plan across India's metropolitan and Tier 2 to Tier 4 cities, with 30% of places reserved free of charge for underserved students. An international operator building premium education at scale while simultaneously committing to an access model. That combination is worth watching closely.
And our third story stays in India, Mumbai, where Jamnabai Narasi International School has signed a 30-year build-to-suit lease worth approximately $82 million for a new campus in Juhu, one of the largest real estate transactions in India's education sector.
Yeah, the deal covers a 2.36-acre plot, which is 300,000 square feet, built by the trust to JNIS's specifications before being handed over for operation. It's going to be IB focused in Mumbai's western suburbs.
And read alongside GEMS, these two Indian developments illuminate something quite important. GEMS is building a national network across multiple states. JNIS is a single school making a generational commitment to a single purpose-built campus in one of the most expensive real estate markets.
Yeah, one model is about scale and system, the other is about depth and performance, and both reflect the same underlying reality that appetite for premium, internationally recognized education in Indian cities is commercially significant enough to justify these kind of capital commitments. And that connects directly to everything the IPSEF panel was discussing.
The fourth story takes us to the Caribbean, where Inspired Education Group has acquired Island Primary and Island Montessori in the Grand Cayman.
Yeah, this first time private schools in the Cayman Islands have been acquired by a for-profit international education group. Island Primary, founded in 2023, follows a British curriculum from reception through to year 6, and Island Montessori is its sister school for early years. So Inspired now operates more than 125 schools across 6 continents.
The community reaction is worth noting, honestly. An information evening held after the announcement received a mixed response. Some parents expressed concern about what a for-profit model means for the school culture and fees, particularly given recent fee increase at Island Montessori. Others were more optimistic about the global opportunities the network provides.
The Island Montessori's founder sought to reassure parents, no changes to leadership or staff, and that assurance matters. But it also sits within the broader pattern that we discussed in the IPSEF panel. The emotional dimension of school transactions and the tension between what communities want to preserve and what new ownership structures sometimes change.
How Inspired handles the next 12 to 24 months in Grand Cayman will be more revealing than anything in the announcement itself.
Yeah, and our final story this week connects directly to the quality question underneath all the others. The Association of British Schools Overseas has reported unprecedented momentum entering the 25-26 academic year, with more BSO-accredited schools joining than any point in the association's history.
British Schools Overseas is the UK Department for Education's inspection scheme for British international schools, the only accreditation framework for international schools formally endorsed by the UK government and quality assured by Ofsted. Voluntary, but increasingly, schools are choosing it.
The growth of membership is a signal that the sector is taking quality infrastructure more seriously. As the IPSEF panel noted, buyers compete on the educational narrative they can offer. A school with BSO accreditation has an externally verified answer to the question every acquisition process eventually raises. Is the school genuinely delivering what it claims?
And that is increasingly valuable, not just for families choosing schools, but for investors assessing what they are buying. And as the sector scales, third-party quality frameworks are what allows trust to travel across geographies, across ownership changes, and across a market expanding very fast. And that brings us to the end of this week's episode.
IPSEF India, the Caribbean, and the infrastructure of British educational quality. A week in which the investment conversation and the educational conversation intersected more clearly than usual.
The sector is attracting more capital, more operators, and more ambition than any point in its history. The questions asked at IPSEF about what makes a school worth acquiring, about what scale does to culture, and what about consolidation becomes inevitable are the right questions.
And they are questions our audience is better placed to navigate because they are being asked openly. So if there's a development in your region that we should be covering, do get in touch. And until next time.